everybody. Welcome out to the show. Hey, it's 7 o'clock. It's a little bit after. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late. I have a very special guest. But while you guys are getting on here, I'm going to play a song. It goes out to Annette by special request. This is called, off of my last record, this is called Beauty and the Beast. And it goes like this. What's happening, everybody? Welcome out. called Beauty and the Beast. Hey, Barbara George, Gary Beckler, Deborah Tova, Candace Rebovich, Barbara George, Darlene. Right on, baby. Right on, right on, right on. Come on. Come on out to the party, you guys. Right on. Welcome out. It's 7 o'clock Saturday Night Live. I know I can't say that, but it's studio night. Studio Live, I'm going to get it straight. Studio Live at 7 o'clock with me, yours truly, Laurie Miller. We got a lot of our greatest fans. That's goes out to Annette by special request. And today, it's a privilege. We have a brand new release. I'm really excited. And I have the privilege of working with somebody who's worked with, all kinds of different people, some of the greatest artists that have ever lived. Celine Dion, Shania Twain, David Foster, Cher, Babyface, Glenn Frey, Michael Bublé, Andre Bocelli, Christina Aguilera, Peebo Bryson, Whitney Houston. He's in all these hits, and he's just a true lover of the music, and he's become a good friend over the last few years. So I'm really excited to spend some time with you. And I had met him on his name is Michael Thompson, and I met him on a tour with Jeff Lorber in Indonesia, and remember how exciting it was for me to meet him, as I had been hearing about him for so long. And, so this last year we've been working on a new single, and it's called Cocoa Butter. And I'm going to play you the video that we just shot, and then I'm going to invite him onto the show, and we're just going to talk. And if you got some questions, please write them there in the comments. I have a bunch already, but if you have some questions, write them for me now. And here is our new single release. Hey, do me a favor. Please share this to your timeline right now or to a group, and let's just invite some people into the party. Here's our new song and song video. This is called, and after this, I'm going to invite Michael on to talk about the people in the band who he helped, who he put together for this. And this is called Cocoa Butter. Check it out. Right on, that's the new single. That's called Cocoa Butter with Michael Thompson. It's the Thompson Lamb Project. And if you want to hear it right now, you can check it out at ThompsonLambProject.com. So that's right here, ThompsonLambProject.com. We have the, this is the cover of the new project. And I also am just excited to bring on Michael. I'm going to call him up here in just a second. But hey, I wanted to get you guys to send me in some questions for him, and just to share this to your timeline. This is the launch of our brand new project, and so I'm really excited about that. I see Tony Gianflone's here, and we were just talking about Michael as one of the most respected people in the industry, in terms of guitarist, and he's been on many different tours. Here we go, ringing him up. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear that. Right on. Here we go. Here, ringing him. Anyway, Darlene Caporelli and Candace Rebovich. Gonna get our Skype going here. Laurie Miller. Pretty sure this song was created with me in mind. That's right. All right, let me see if I can get him on the phone here. Here we go. Give me a second. All right, let's give it another go. Here we go. Give me just 1 second. So, meantime, I'll tell you what. I'm going to play a little bit of his Michael Thompson's Reel. If you're not aware of all the different things he's recorded, I'm going to play some of that while we get in touch with him here. So everybody, so that's Michael Thompson's reel, and he's. I'm not going to say he's shy because he's not, because but he's just. I think he's just busy all the time, and he's in demand. I'm lucky to even talk to him today because he was working on Dave Coz's new record, I believe. Is that okay to say? But anyway, let me see.
The competition. He's the competition, though.
Let me see here. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Thompson,
Hey.
say hello. What's up? How you doing, Michael?
Hey, people.
MT. Your
Love
friends
you.
call you MT. Is that right?
Yep.
Or can anybody call you MT? No, just your
Anyone
friends.
can
Anybody.
call me MT. I was Mike growing up, and then I got in a band with this guy, Ellis Hall, in Boston in the 70s, and he started calling me MT, and that was the first time I'd ever been called my initials, and it just stuck.
Yeah, it's kind of an affectionate thing, but
Yeah.
you know, that's cool. Well, everybody loves Michael. It's like a TV show. So, but hey, I got so many questions. People are sending me just like 15 questions a minute. So people just want to know a different stuff about you. Like how did you get? I remember you telling me this story a little bit. It's totally fascinating. But how you came to Los Angeles and you were. What were you doing? You were driving a taxi or something like that?
Well, yeah, I mean,
or something
the first
like that.
year, yeah, when I first moved out here, I mean, I had the dream of I grew up on Long Island in New York, and somewhere in my teen years, I started having the dream of coming to LA and being a studio musician. Of course, everyone wanted to be a rock star too, but I specifically wanted to be someone that got to play on records. It's weird early on.
Hey, everybody out there, just be careful what you wish for.
It's weird because some band guys, like when they finally get in the recording studio, they're sort of the red light fever thing kind of it takes some getting used to for some people but I was fortunate that my band in high school, a guy that worked at RCA, took a liking to us and got us studio time in the professional, the big studio in New York City, RCA, and I just loved it. I loved the idea of recording and doing overdubs and the whole thing. And so anyway, I came out here in 79, and when I first got here, the first week I got here, I very flukily got a gig with Joe Cocker. It just turned out a friend of mine had gotten a gig on keys, and I said, get me an audition, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I did a little tour with him of Europe, but then I came out and he decided to not go out like that year and for like another 6 months, and I was broke. And I'd never had a day gig, and I had to, I looked in the paper and it said drivers needed for this funky cab company. And that was my year driving a cab, and I was, trying to meet people and run around doing demos and doing all this stuff. But can I get your bag, sir? That was me. And
then
I was in a band rehearsing at night, this rock band called Romance. And towards the end of that year, the drummer got a gig with Cher. And I said, get me an audition. And that was my first cattle call audition. There were 75 guitar players that auditioned. And I had to get out of that cab. So I was well prepared, and I went in there, and Cher liked me, and I ended up playing with her for a year.
What was that like? First meeting Cher? Like, what was she like? Was she at that time?
Well, first, the first star I played with was Joe Cocker, and I had seen him at Woodstock and was a big fan. So that was like the first rock star person, and he was sweet and nice and great, and it was a thrill for me to play his songs. And then Cher, of course, was a big, huge star, and she was very nice and sort of like one of the guys when it came to the band. You can get that vibe when you see her in like the Wrecking Crew documentary and stuff. She's definitely on the musicians end of things and stuff. And most of it was, we went to Monte Carlo and Sun City in South Africa and Australia, but most of it was Caesar's Palace in Vegas. It was a whole lot of Caesar's Palace. And she had this contract where I think she was the only one that only had to do one show a night instead of 2 shows a night. And except on the weekend, there were 2 shows a night. But, so it was like a whole lot of, you know, getting in trouble in Vegas and just doing one show a night and stuff. But it was bizarre, though, going from driving a cab to like 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Monte Carlo at this table with Cher at this really ritzy restaurant. And I'm like, wow, this is too weird, But the people I met, a bunch of people I met on that Cher gig ended up being good contacts for my in-town work that was just starting to, get a little bit of a foothold after that tour. Her musical director ended up being a pretty important guy to me because he ended up producing the music for this TV show called Fame that was kind of the big thing back then. And that gave me a weekly session thing because they almost went like year round and they would cut like 2 songs a week. And it wasn't a typical TV thing because they would do the sessions at the record plant and it was with the Cats. The other guys on the session were like known, studio guys. And this producer guy, Gary Scott, just liked the way I played. So he hired me for those sessions. And that was when I first started, circulating a little bit with the guys that were the busy studio guys and stuff. But anyway, that was my beginnings. Kind of get long-winded.
So one of the questions we're getting is, what does it take? Why do you think you're able to cross over so many different, all genres as a guitar player? I mean, you just looking at this list. If we were to talk about your experiences with some of these artists, we would be here for probably 4 or 5, 6 hours. But what do you think it takes to? What's so special kind of about what you do that enables you to just cross over to all these different genres, from Andrea Bocelli to Dave Koz to Celine Dion and Shania Twain? That I'm curious about her, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's it's you've probably found the same thing with what you do. What I like to hear, what I enjoy hearing. Fortunately, most other people do too. That's why it's pop music. It's popular music. I like pop music and always loved records and hooks and cool guitar parts and stuff like that. And so I've always treated every song I play on like, if this was my song, what would I play? I sort of start there. And most of the time, people dig the same stuff I dig, and it worked out great. I mean, of course, different producers would have some ideas or some things they want you to try and stuff. But as I developed, and especially after I started playing on hit records, because all through the 80s I was doing, I would do a real record, what I call a real record here and there. But it was mostly like demos and publishing demos. And then I got into like a jingle phase where I was doing tons of jingles and stuff. But in the 90s, when I started, mostly because I started working with David Foster, it started being hit records, like just #1 hit records. And so that is that gives you confidence that like, wow, I played on that hit record. People liked it. I'm going to do what I hear, and so anyway, that helped sort of fortify my feelings about like what am I doing? Am I doing the right contribution to the tune and stuff?
So here's another question. So the question's coming in of what's the difference between like an approach doing studio work and then a live performance, or do you typically just bring the same thing and the same energy and approach to both things? Or can you talk about that a little bit? Because you actually, some people just do studio work and then they're like the studio band, but you've done studio work and then you go out and tour with everybody too. So
I was coming from always being a band guy. Growing up, my brother and I had a band, rehearsed in my parents' garage for years. And so I was a very live oriented player, but I look at the studio thing and the live thing as two different hats. And it's creating a record. It's like sitting down to paint a picture, you know. The studio thing, I look at it a lot more like that. Even though you want to bring that live energy, of course, you want to bring the same thing. Yeah, what you were saying. Not all great studio players are what we would consider like a burning live player. I've been disappointed a bunch of times when someone that plays on records, when you see him at a gig, you expect him to be, great in the sense of like you're going to be blown away by this person, and although they may have a great skill for playing on recordings, they don't have that live thing. And I always tried to. That was something that was part of my DNA, like on a live gig, you had to play a burning solo and you had to kill it like that. But it is a different hat, kind of. Don't you think so?
Yeah, well, for me, it's about just energy and excitement and communicating positive vibes when you're performing.
Yeah.
But in the studio, I don't know. I was just meeting with Gino Vannelli today, so he's, just depends on what the needs are and what. I just try to fit into what fits the song and what the producer wants, which kind of takes me to my next question. Producers.
Yeah.
So, like working with Mutt Lange or David Foster. Oh, I know we don't have all day, which is a short segment, but I'm very curious about what you think makes those producers so successful and fantastic, and what it was like working with those two particular ones, Mutt Lange.
Yeah. I mean, I'd throw Babyface in there too, because he was he's someone I consider just, of the producers that I got to work with, and I kind of got a chance to work with most of the big guys, and it used to be the old school producer was like the guy. Sometimes he was like the record company guy. He'd be the guy that would call the arranger. He'd call the musicians. He'd be the liaison kind of with the label. That was sort of the old school thing. Then guys like David Foster brought in this new breed of what I think of when I think of a producer. It's more that guy that has a vision for the whole track and how, is more of a musician producer, arranger producer, all wrapped up in one. And I know there's different ways of doing it. There's great producers, some, I guess, that don't even play or something. They have a knack for, producing. But like a guy like David or Mutt Lange or Babyface are totally, can create a track by themselves, a direction, a vision, a sound. And so getting to be part of their productions was just me adding what I do and it fitting with what they do. And that was a thrill to me, actually, with all three of those guys, to be able to contribute to the records. And then you hear it on the radio and you hear yourself, as opposed to, when it isn't contributing to the song, you're either mixed out or mixed real low, or, So anyway, I don't know if I got sidetracked.
No, that makes sense. Do all of those three guys have a river that runs through it? You think that's the similarity? They're obviously all great musicians. So they're great musicians and they have a vision. They already they picture the thing, already on the Grammy stage, and you and the right who's on board for the track. Is that kind of what how you would describe it? Do you think?
Well, like David Foster, for instance, that a lot of those tunes in the 90s and early 2000s were written by Diane Warren, who's just, everyone knows she's a phenomenal songwriter. But they hit kind of a, it was a thing, a Diane song with a David production and a big artist. That was the combination. And Diane got on this real, just a fantastic just batch of songs she wrote there. But it seemed like every other week I was going up to David's place and playing on the next hit. And 9 times out of 10 it was a Diane Warren song. But so he's a great producer, but he was also being offered a great song with a established artist most of the time, and that was a good combination.
So are these guys are they pretty tough, or what's their vibe in the
Well,
studio?
It's funny because I always thought, in the '80s when I was listening to David Foster record, like Chicago, and those records were the arrangement was so tight, and I remember the first call that I got to go up and play with, play on a thing. The first thing I did with David was just this. It was like a favor demo for Paul Anka, and it wasn't even, it wasn't even a big record or something, and he couldn't get Lukather or Landau, whoever he had been working with, and the engineer actually recommended me. I had done a stupid demo session or something with him a few days before, and he was like, I worked with a guy the other night that was good. So I went up there, but I remember driving up there going, wow, man, David Foster, he's probably going to tell me every note he wants me to play, and it couldn't have been more opposite. The whole 25 years of working with him was basically, what do you got? They put the tune up, I get there, I get my sound, they put the song up, and it's the first time I'm hearing, Because You Love Me or Unbreak My Heart or something like that. Great songs, but I would just start playing along with the track, and he would hear what we do is I'd get my sound, they'd put the track up, I'd play it once through, sometimes not even having a chart yet, because he would scribble the chords like he had handwriting like a doctor, but and 9 times out of 10 he would hear one thing I did that he really liked, and most of the time he engineered and just would punch me in, but then maybe I'd play one thing in the middle that he dug, and we would start at the top, and I would come up with some little thing for the intro, and then he had a law, since most of his arrangements were like piano or keyboard in the first verse. It's kind of like a building a song 101 kind of thing, where I don't play in the verse, and then the first B section I would do a little fairy dust something, and then it'd be the chorus, and I'd have to come up with a part and stuff, and we would work together, but it was mostly like I said, what do you got? What am I bringing to it? And he didn't tell me. He would hear something I played or make a suggestion every now and then, or I would play something and he'd go, that's really cool, but it doesn't fit on this record. I remember him saying that every now and then, but most of the time it was just your first thing, or like the thing, like I said, that I would play if it was my song.
Wow, so cool. So hey, I'm gonna break for 10 seconds here. I'm going to thank a couple of people, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about, we're going to talk about how we met, and then I would love to talk about the things that you've produced, like Paul Anka's last record. So I'll be right back. Hey, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank Laurie Miller, Karen Holden, Michelle Ferguson, Raisa Permisler, Victoria Chambers. You make this possible, and these are people that buy my T-shirts and CDs and make this make this whole thing possible. That's it. That's my little spiel. Okay, we're back. I'm here with Michael Thompson, legendary Michael Thompson. We're talking about production and his experiences in the business, and now we were gonna talk a little bit about how we met, and then his latest productions, including producing Paul Anka's records. So, Michael, you remember how we met? You remember?
Yes, I do. I'll never forget it. We both were going to Indonesia to play the Java Jazz Festival with Jeff Lorber. So I have Jeff to thank for putting us together. You had been playing with Jeff, and I had been working with Jeff on some studio stuff. It's weird because Jeff Lorber was someone that my whole career I had never even met him. Of course I was aware of him and stuff, and he called me up. It must have been, when was that we did that?
That was, God, was that like a decade ago?
Yeah, it
Something
was.
like
And
that, like
so
10 years ago or something.
yeah, not that long before we did that, I had just met him, but he called me up out of the blue because he was Jeff's a guitar player, and the incredible keyboard player. But he was looking at one of my YouTube demonstrating like some guitar pedals that I was playing
I
or
remember
something.
that he showed that to me. It was you, and like you had this phalanx of guitar pedals, and he was
Yeah,
like, I don't know how he gets all these incredible sounds, and he was just kind of he's a rocket scientist. So
yeah, I know. And he literally called me up and said, "We got to work together." And I'm like, "Wow, okay." And so Jeff started coming over to my studio with his, as you know, he produces a lot of things,
oh,
mostly
he's
smooth
great. Yeah.
artist stuff, and he's one of those people that he just likes to be here when I'm doing it. Even though in more recent years I've done some stuff where he isn't here, but he just enjoys sitting in my studio, and he's another one that rarely even makes a suggestion. He just sits there and goes, "I like it, I like it," and I just keep working on the tune, and we yap. That's the thing. It's the only trouble with Jeff being here. We like get talking about something, and hours go by, but we've had fun. So anyway, that going to Indonesia with you, I felt like we hit it off like right off the bat.
It was super fun. We played for, what was it? The president of,
Yeah.
and I'm hearing some crackling, by the way. I'm not sure if you're
Oh, not
if
on my end.
interesting. I wonder what. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. Um, I know we were playing for the president, and that's why I went, because I wasn't playing with the Jeff Lorber group. I had played on, was it four tunes? I think it was four
Mhm.
songs that the president of Indonesia wrote. He's like a hobby songwriter guy.
But he
And
worked
the
he
president,
worked on that with Jeff, and Jeff kind of arranged and produced it, and then he put together a
yeah,
band for a
Jeff,
televised thing, right?
yeah, Jeff arranged and produced four songs for the president of Indonesia. And so the one of the performances that we did over there, remember he was there and there were like
Hmm.
tanks outside and stuff. And I heard that afterwards he said he felt like David Foster or something, having his songs performed by these really great musicians and stuff. So I guess he was happy with it, but Jeff was able to bring me on that thing because the president wanted the guys that played on the record. So
And then we had the singer. The singer's name was Jeff. I think the crackling's coming from my own mic. Sorry about that. I think I'm getting some kind of issue with my mic. Anyway, um, yeah. What
yeah,
was the singer?
Jeff Passetto.
Passetto. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
funny because I remember he was like taking a nap or something, and I remember it was like 5 minutes before, and they're like, "Where's Jeff?" And I ran back, and he was like conked, conked out. We were like,
yeah, he's been a friend of Jeff Lorber's for a long time, but in
great
the 80s,
guy, great guy. I'm not,
really guy,
nothing
great
disparaging. I just,
and but it was weird because in the '80s I used to do Jeff Passetto's song demos, and I literally hadn't seen him since. So like 20 years had gone by, and that was fun doing that gig because I hadn't seen him in so long.
yeah. Hey, talk to us about Paul Anka and producing the productions that you do on your own at your studio, just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I got into producing. I just always like to do tracks and write tunes, and so I've kind of been doing it for a long time. The thing I've also been working with Paul Anka for like 25 years. He started having me do like enhancement tracks for his live show in the maybe in the mid '90s. And it morphed from doing that, like where his live show, he has a great band and a pretty big band, but he would want extra guitars and extra parts and stuff, and so that's what I started out doing, but that kind of morphed into actually arranging the tracks and producing the tracks and doing his records with him too. um,
And did you
And
mix? Did you mix his last record too? Did you mix it?
I did, and I didn't even want that gig. It's he had a like a real famous guy. See, the thing is, when I work on, excuse me, when I work on something, when I'm done, I'll make a rough mix, and so I'd be working on these tunes for his record, doing the arrangement and playing the overdubs and doing the stuff. Then I would make him a rough mix, which he's one of those people that listens to the rough mix like over and over and over again, right? And I people like my rough mixes. I mean, they have the vibe because I've sat there for days working on the tunes usually, and I know where I want to hear things. And so Paul got like just so used to my rough mixes, and then when this famous guy mixed the first couple of songs, he called me up and he said, "How come I like your mixes so much better?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, but I like them." So anyway, for that particular record, which was it was on Sony, it was a few years ago and stuff, but I mixed the tunes, and one of them was like "This Is It," because he had written that with Michael Jackson. So I had a track. The challenge on that was like I had one track of Michael's voice, a snap, there was a piano on it, and the background vocals. It was all on one mono track. And somehow I built a track around it. And I had my son, who's a really great singer and a really good mimic. Like, he had Michael Jackson down. So there were parts of the tune where Michael's voice, I didn't have it on a separate track, so I couldn't push it up. So I had my son Jason like ghost him, and you'd never know it, but like on that track, sometimes it's just my son singing, but you think it's Michael Jackson the whole time.
Well, your whole family is super talented. I'm sorry, I think this microphone is going out, and I don't know what to do about it. So we're just, it just started crackling.
Oh.
So I think your whole family is talented. I mean, Sahara, she sings, and she's got a project out, and she sings on all kinds of stuff, right? I think.
Yeah, she's been around it her whole life, and when she was 6 years old, she started writing these the greatest little kitty songs, and I would do a track for her and bring her in my studio, and she would do, I showed her how to do harmonies and double herself and stuff like that. So she's actually been working with me since she was a little kid, and then when I could fit her on a tune, to this day I still do it. When I need backgrounds, I have a built-in, in-house, really good singer. She has really good pitch, and has good ideas. She's good with harmonies and stuff, and so that's worked. And my son Zach is a drummer, and he's we all love music. My kids have really good ears, though. Like my son Jason that did the Michael Jackson thing, he has perfect pitch. And the other two have like amazing relative pitch. We'll sit around like coming up with songs, just like Beatles songs or whatever. And the game is like to sing the tune and then check the key. And like 99 out of 100 times they're right, So they didn't get that from me. Their mother has a really good ear, but.
Right on. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about. Actually, you know what I'm going to do right quick? I'm going to do it just for tech because this microphone's going out. I'm going to play a little bit more of your reel, get creative with this, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to go swap out this microphone. Does that sound good?
Great. Yeah.
Is that okay? I'm sorry about that.
That's cool.
Let me find the. Here we go. So I'm going to be back in like 2 minutes. Okay. Check out some more of Michael Thompson's reel.
All Wishing I could touch your face, but the truth remains. You're gone, baby, you're gone. Girl, you're gone, baby girl, you. This I promise you. I play the street life because there's no place I can go. Street life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. I'm going up. Oh. It's about as bad as it don't try.
All right, everybody, we're back, and you know what? I figured out it's a cable, and I can't fix it until after the show. So sorry about the technical, Murphy's Law. The cable has gone bad on my mic. So anyway, sorry for the little crackling and popping. But hey, Michael, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the guys on the new release that we have going together, Cocoa Butter. It's a real privilege to work with John Robinson, Rafael Padilla, and you're playing bass. Now, how many different things do you play bass on? Is this a new thing, or is this something that you've been doing that nobody knows about for a long time?
It's kind of been like, for lack of, having a bass player, I've always had a bass, and I do come up with bass lines. Don't consider myself a bass player in the sense of Nathan East or Neil Steubenhouse or anything, but that tune, when I wrote the tune, I put that bass down, and the more I listened to it, I was like, because originally I was going to have Nathan East play bass on it because we had all these stellar guys on the rest of the track, but it just fit, and what I did worked, and so why replace it?
Yeah, why replace it? How about talk to us about you've been working with John Robinson for a very long time. Talk about him. Tell us a little about John. It's I know about him, but you've worked with him extensively, and just tell people about it.
Yeah, man, JR and I go all the way back to Berkeley. We were both going to Berkeley College of Music in 1973. That's how old I am. But we were in a melody improv class together. And he, we met back then. And then when I moved to LA, he had already been out here for a couple of years. He had joined Rufus and had started working with Quincy and done the Off the Wall album. And it was actually a few years before we started hanging out together because I was working my way up the session ladder and he was already at the top when I moved out here. I mean, he started with Quincy, and he was ready. I felt like I was ready too, but I needed the extra, schooling, training, whatever it was to work my way up into the thing. But then in the mid 80s, later 80s, we started doing some sessions together, and then we started doing a lot of sessions together. And we've had, I think, 3 bands together too. We had a rock trio in the 90s. called Revolver, and we ended up doing an album on Frontiers Records. We called it TRW at that point because we couldn't use that name. But and then we had a band called Native Son, more of a fusiony R&B kind of thing with Bobby Watson from Rufus, and that band did one album too, and now we still do a bunch of stuff. A lot of the stuff I play on, John has played drums on it. So, but he played on our record and he killed it, and I always know he's going to kill it when he plays.
It's a beautiful thing. Now, Philippe Sace, tell us about him. Became familiar with. I mean, I've known about him for a long time, but talk to us a little bit about Philippe and his participation on the record.
Yeah, Philippe Sace is he's French, and he was. I only met him like a couple of years ago. I knew of him because he was on that great Dave Sanborn show called. What was that show called? Night Music. It was on every Sunday night for whatever year that was. Just some great live performances. I think it was Marcus Miller and Hiram Bullock, and Philippe was the keyboard player on that show, and he was phenomenal on that. And then he was also this guy Arif Martin's like right hand man, the great producer and arranger producer Arif was, and then Philippe moved out here. I don't know how many years ago, but I didn't meet him until we both did this Japanese band's 2 tracks in the studio with them, and we kind of hit it off. And then he did, like, I left the session and Philippe did a solo, and then they sent me the track to do some guitar overdubs on. And I was listening to the solo he did, and it was like the best thing I had ever heard, man. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, man, you are just fantastic," And so anyway, we've done. We haven't really done much else since. He co-wrote a tune on Rick Braun's new album that I played on, and then we've hollered at each other on Facebook a few times, but. When we decided to do this song Cocoa Butter, it had such a Caribbean feel. I didn't even know that Philippe played marimba and vibes, but he had been putting up Facebook like him live in his studio playing on people's records, and just real nice vibe player and marimba player. So that's what he played on our song. And he was so gracious too. He was like, because I said, hey, I'll play guitar on whatever you want me to and stuff. He said, yeah, off in the future, maybe I'll call you for that. But man, I'm honored to be on this. So it felt amazing to have him do that.
It's fantastic. He was everybody's such a gentleman. And so Steve Sykes, I'm sorry about the static. I just have a cable that's going out. Studio. So Steve Sykes, talk to us about him.
Steve Sykes is a great engineer mixer who I also met in the 80s. I'll never forget, because back then it became that like you created your own sound, and pretty much or at least I did, and pretty much an engineer could just bring up your tracks and he wouldn't have to add anything to it. You already had your own pretty produced sound already. And but anyway, when I first worked with Steve, I had like 3 little things in a rack, and he started like working with my sound and adding EQ and compression and delay and stuff, and I was like flabbergasted at how good he made me sound. And I was like, dude, can you do like every session I ever do? And so it was love at first listen with him, and then in like '88, I ended up doing the music, not writing the music, but playing guitar on Miami Vice, the last session of the last season of Miami Vice, and it was with this guy named Tim Truman, this composer, and I got Steve on that as the mix engineer. And so he mixed that whole last season, which is funny because they've been showing it on some channel on cable, and those tunes, the tracks sound pretty damn good. But anyway, I've been a fan of his, the guy that mixed our record, Steve Sykes, for forever, since the late 80s.
Well, I can't thank you enough for putting that all together. And say thanks for spending some time with us. I'm having a few little technical difficulties, so what I'm going to do is play our video, and then everybody's gonna thank you for joining us, and thank you for the privilege of playing with you and putting this all together. And I'm looking forward to hopefully doing this live at some point.
Yeah, that would be great, and releasing more tunes.
That'd be great, man. Michael, I can't thank you enough. MT, I love you so much.
Love you, man.
All right, see you soon.
All right, you got it.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much. Hey, Michael, thank you so much for being here. And I'm sorry for this is the first time I've had this happen, but hey, that's why we call it Studio Live. And I've had pretty good luck so far, but hey, I'm the engineer. I'm not doing so good today, so, sorry about that. But thank you again, and I'm super grateful, and I hope to see all of you and you, Michael, at some point somewhere in real time. So God bless you guys. Yeah, and good night. Talk to you soon.